It started with the sound no one could ignore. Low, steady barking. Not loud, not angry, just constant. Every night, right after sunset, Marley would walk over to the same corner of the living room, sit down on the worn wooden floor, and start barking at the wall. At first, they thought it was the move. New smells, new sounds, new ghosts in the pipes. Marley had only been with them for 2 weeks, and rescues took time. That's what the shelter lady said. The Barkers, yes, that was really their last name, had driven almost 2 hours to get Marley. They weren't looking for a dog. Not really. They were just visiting, they said. But Marley had looked up from the back of his kennel and didn't blink, didn't wag, didn't move, just watched them. Quiet, skinny, eyes deep and waiting. Something about him made them stop walking, something that felt like gravity. So they brought him home, and for the first few days, he barely made a sound. Their house sat at the edge of a quiet neighborhood, the kind with old trees and cracked sidewalks. It had charm, the realtor said. History. Kind of history that creaked at night and smelled like dust when it rained. The Barkers moved in just after the holidays. Boxes still lined the hallway. Picture frames leaned against the wall waiting for nails. They'd picked the house for its bones, for the light that came through the kitchen window in the morning, for the deep backyard. They didn't know it came with secrets. On the 6th night, Marley barked again. Same place, same wall. This time, longer, louder. He paced, sat, barked, stood again, scratched. The sound of his nails tapping against the drywall echoed through the house. They tried to distract him with treats, toys, walks. But the moment they came back inside, he went straight for the corner again. Ears up, body tense. Barking. Always barking. Something was there. Or maybe Marley remembered something the rest of them couldn't see. Mrs. Barker, Claire, was the first to get worried. She had grown up around animals, had worked at a vet's office during college. She'd seen dogs grieve before, seen them act strange after trauma. But this was different. This wasn't grief. This was focus. Sometimes, when Marley barked, he tilted his head like he was listening, like something on the other side of that wall was whispering back. Claire started avoiding that room. She turned up the TV, started leaving music on during the day, pretended it wasn't getting under her skin, but it was. Every night she watched. Marley returned to that spot like it called to him, and she started to wonder, not if there was something wrong with Marley, but with the house. One morning, after a long night of barking, Claire walked in to find scratches on the wall. Shallow but deep enough to leave marks. She ran her fingers over them. Fresh. Right at dog height. Marley sat a few feet back, tail flat against the floor, just watching her. Not wagging, not moving. Just like that day at the shelter. Claire's heart tightened. Something about his stillness made her feel like a child again, like something bad was about to happen. She called. Her husband, Drew, at work. "I think something's inside the wall," she said. He laughed at first. "Like what? Mice?" But when he came home that night, Marley barked again. Harder this time. And Drew finally heard it. The hollowness behind the wall. Like something had been carved out. They waited until the weekend. Saturday morning. Rain, tapping against the windows. Marley was quiet for once, lying by the back door, eyes open but not moving. Drew got out a flashlight, a hammer, and a small crowbar. Claire held her breath. He tapped along the drywall. Light thuds. Then, one soft echo. There was a space, a hidden cavity between the studs. Carefully, Drew cut into the wall. A small rectangle. Drywall dust filled the air. Claire turned away, coughing. Inside, behind the insulation, was something wrapped in old cloth. A rusted tin box, the kind kids used to keep treasure in. Claire reached for it with shaking hands. She opened the lid. Photos, faded and curling at the edges. A bracelet, pink plastic beads spelling out a name, Ellie, and letters. Childlike scrawl in purple ink. Notes about a dog named Max. Drawings of a big backyard. A tire swing. A house that looked just like theirs. Claire stared. Her breath caught. Ellie, she whispered. Oh my God, my sister. She hadn't said her name in years. Not out loud. Ellie had gone missing when Claire was just a teenager. Vanished one summer day while staying with their grandmother in a small rural town. The town where this house now stood. Police searched. Flyers went up. Roads were combed. But Ellie was never found. Claire remembered the bracelet. She remembered making it with Ellie at the kitchen table. One bead at a time. And now, it was here. Hidden in the wall of the house they'd just moved into, Marley had found it. Somehow he knew. He lay down beside the open hole in the wall, resting his chin on the floor. For the first time in weeks, his eyes were calm. Still alert, but peaceful. Claire sat beside him, holding the bracelet tight in her palm. Drew stared at the tin in silence, his mind racing, trying to piece together a mystery buried for 20 years. And Marley. Marley just closed his eyes. He hadn't been barking at nothing. He had been trying to lead them home. The house felt different after that. Not colder, not scarier, just heavier. Like it had been holding its breath for decades, and now it had finally exhaled. Claire couldn't sleep that night. She sat on the couch with Marley at her feet, staring at the open wall, the tin box now, resting on the coffee table. She hadn't thought about Ellie in years. Not properly. Not since therapy in college, when the therapist told her some losses don't heal. They just get quieter. But this wasn't quiet. This was loud. Marley had made sure of it. The next morning, Claire called her mother. It was awkward, strained. They didn't talk often. The grief had changed them in different ways. But when Claire said the word Ellie, the silence on the other end felt like a dam breaking. She explained everything. The wall. The tin. Marley. Her mother didn't say much. Just asked for pictures. When Claire sent them, her mother called back, crying. That's her bracelet, she whispered. That's really hers. They took the tin to the police. Not much they could do after all this time, they said. But they opened a new report. Took it seriously. The old missing persons case was still in the system. The photos showed a girl, in overalls, holding a black lab puppy. Behind her, the same crooked fence that still stood in their backyard. It was Ellie. There was no doubt. And the house, this house, must have belonged to the family she was with when she disappeared. Someone had tried to hide this. Claire couldn't stop wondering. Had Ellie been here? Had she lived in this house, hidden away? Had she died here? And if so, how did Marley know? She went back to the shelter the next day. She needed answers. Anything. Marley had been found wandering near an old, burned-down farmhouse off Route 6, they told her. No collar. No microchip. Looked like he'd been living on scraps. Skittish. At first, but never aggressive. Claire looked up the address. Her breath caught again. The farmhouse was less than a mile from where Ellie had gone missing. She and Drew drove out there, just once. The land was empty now, burned husk of a foundation, overgrown grass. But Marley perked up when they pulled in. He sniffed the air, tail still, walked toward the broken porch like he remembered it. Claire followed slowly, heart racing. She couldn't explain it. She wasn't even sure what she was looking for. But then she saw it, buried under the ashes and brush. A rusted dog bowl. Faded letters still visible on the side. Max, just like the drawings in Ellie's letters. Marley circled it, sat down. Then looked back at Claire with those eyes. She dropped to her knees and cried. Over the next week, the house grew quiet. No more barking, no more scratching. Marley no longer stared at the wall. He'd done what he came to do. And Claire, for the first time in years, felt something strange. Not peace, not yet, but a kind of direction. A thread pulling her forward. She spent her evenings reading Ellie's letters. There were only a few, written in a shaky child's hand, but they were full of love. She talked about the dog, Max, and how he always slept by her bed, how he barked when the man in the house got too close, how they used to sneak out to the tree swing in the backyard. The last letter ended abruptly, just a half-finished sentence. No goodbye. Claire started thinking about timelines. Marley was around 10 years old, give or take. Same age Max would have been, but could he be the same dog? Was it even possible? A vet visit said Marley was likely a black lab mix. Neutered, but with old scars, thin hips from years of hard living. No chip, no history. Just one note in his shelter. File. Found sitting on porch of abandoned home. Wouldn't leave. Claire lay awake that night, thinking of all the things dogs never say. All the stories they carry in silence. Marley hadn't been lost. He'd been waiting. Guarding. Maybe. Not for Ellie anymore, but for someone who still remembered her. Claire took Marley to the backyard the next morning. The light was soft. Cool air brushing the trees. She sat on the porch step while Marley wandered, sniffing the air, tail gently wagging. She watched him pause at the back fence. There was a spot behind a tree stump where the ground looked disturbed, just slightly, like someone had once buried something there and forgot to pack the dirt flat. Claire didn't move, just stared. Marley sat beside her. She didn't need to dig. Not now. Some things were better left in memory, in the quiet trust between a girl and her dog. Whatever had happened, whatever secrets this house had hidden, Marley had already done the hardest part. He'd brought her home. Not just Ellie, but Claire, too. Spring came slowly that year, the kind of spring that doesn't burst in with color, but arrives in soft, quiet moments. Warm wind through open windows. Rain that smells like earth. A dog stretched out in the sun, no longer watching the wall. Marley had changed. Or maybe Claire had. He followed her from room to room now, not out of fear, but like he just wanted to be near her. When she sat at her desk, he lay at her feet. When she cooked, he dozed in the doorway. At night, he slept by the bedroom door, tail twitching. In dreams, Claire still had questions. So many. But she'd stopped asking them out loud. Somewhere deep down, she believed Marley really had been Max. Ellie's Max. Maybe he'd run off when the fire happened. Maybe he'd stayed behind. Maybe he'd waited at that farmhouse long after Ellie was gone, growing older alone, until someone finally found him. And somehow, He'd found his way back to the house where it all began. Found the wall. Found the tin. Found the one person who still remembered Ellie's laugh and gave her that piece back. The Barkers never patched the hole in the wall. They left it open, not wide, just enough to see the cavity inside. They built a small wooden frame around it, placed the bracelet inside a clear box, and kept the letters folded beneath it. Some nights, Claire would sit beside it, Marley at her side, and read a letter out loud. She didn't cry as much anymore. She just remembered. One evening, almost 6 months after they opened the wall, Claire's mother came to visit. She stood in the living room a long time, running her fingers over the wood, over the old tin, over the photograph of her daughters taped beside it. Then she knelt down in front of Marley. He didn't move, just watched her quietly. She touched his face, gently, like she was holding something fragile. "You stayed," she whispered. "You really stayed." And Marley, as if he knew, leaned forward and rested his head in her lap. She wept into his fur. Not for the first time. Not the last. Life didn't go back to normal. It grew into something new. Claire began volunteering at the shelter where they'd found Marley. She started fostering scared dogs, the ones that flinched, the ones who didn't bark, the ones who waited too quietly in the corners of their kennels. Marley always greeted them first, patient, calm, like he remembered what it felt like to be unsure of the world. Some dogs stayed a week, others a few months, but they always left stronger than they came. Marley made sure of it. As the years passed, Marley grew slower. His muzzle grayed, his steps stiffened, but his eyes never lost that depth, that quiet knowing. Claire gave him soft beds and warm blankets, long naps under trees, gentle walks when his legs allowed. And always, every night, he would still pass that corner of the living room. Just pause for a second. Look. Then move on. She used to think he was checking the wall again. But really, maybe he was just saying goodnight. The morning he didn't wake up, the house felt different again. Quiet. Yes. But not the same kind of quiet it had been when they first moved in. This was peaceful. A silence filled with memory, with meaning, with love. Claire buried him beneath the tree in the backyard, the one Ellie had drawn, the one Marley always sniffed first before lying down. She placed a small wooden marker beside it. Nothing fancy, just a name carved in soft lettering. Marley, loyal, loved, home, and beneath that, just one more word. Max? People still ask her what he was barking at. She never gives them a clear answer. She just smiles a little, looks toward the corner of the living room and says, "Sometimes, dogs remember things we've forgotten." And for the rest of her life, every time she heard a dog bark at nothing, just for a moment, Claire would stop and listen, just in case. Dogs truly are the most loyal companions in our lives. What did you think of this heartwarming story? Let us know in the comments. Like the video and share it with your friends. Subscribe to our channel for daily emotional dog stories. Turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Click here to watch the next story of love, loyalty, and the incredible bond we share with our paw-some friends.